please stand for a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this rain and this time that we are here together. Let us make good and wise decisions for our town. In your name we pray. Amen.
Alrighty. Do I have no proclamations, recognitions, or nothing, presentation this evening? All right, at this time, we'll open the floor to public comment. If there's somebody from the audience that'd like to speak on a matter that is not on the agenda, now is your time to do so.
I have something if nobody else does.
Okay.
Does anybody out there have anything?
Nope.
Nobody out there has a public comment? Okay. I know we can't take action on it tonight, but last year's budget, or maybe even year before last budget, we budgeted to buy a programmable traffic sign, which we never have gotten one for whatever reason. Talked to Robin yesterday, and I would like to see us pursue possibly buying 2 new ones. They sell for $22,000 through Wenco, and I would like to have that put on next meeting's agenda, and possibly, I don't know whether there's any way we could look into paying for it with COVID funds, because it could be part of putting out information about COVID testing, COVID vaccinations, COVID whatever. That's up to you to look into that, but I would like to explore our options, but I would like to see us move on and possibly look at purchasing 2 new programmable signs. I know we can't discuss it, so I'd like to maybe get that on.
a future agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? If not, I'm gonna.
I have something. Sorry. Just an opposite observation that I made when we were down in Willows and we were talking to someone down there. And I thought it was a really great deal, and I don't know if we can kind of incorporate it here in town, but every time a veteran passes away, they fly the flags on the main street. Is that something that we might be able to?
Can I address that since it's me that does it? I mean, it's not a council thing. It's not got anything to do with the city. Colin?
Well, it's something that's not agendized. You can briefly respond to it, but we can't get any.
Can't have a full-on discussion.
Well, yeah, I mean, because the city doesn't have anything to do with the flags flying downtown.
How about Shelley, you get with Dave after the meeting?
Shelley, you get with me.
There, that squashes that. Is there anybody else? Karen, Chewy? Lisa?
Robert, you got anything?
Nah, I'm good. All right, we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. Is there any items that any council members or public would like to be pulled or discussed? If not, look for a motion.
I move we accept consent agenda items 1 through 8.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So passed unanimous. Move on to public hearings and meetings. Item 9, public hearing, adopt resolution 1109, 2021-01, approving the issuance of bonds by California Statewide Communities Development Authority, CSCDA, for the Valley Terrace Apartments.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. In order for the bonds to qualify, the city must conduct a public hearing regarding the issuance of $7 million in tax-exempt bonds. The bonds will allow improvements to Valley Terrace Apartments, and there's no fiscal impact to the city. I believe we have James Hamill here to represent the project, if the council has any questions.
Do I need to open the public hearing first?
To open the public hearing.
All right, at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. I personally don't have any questions or concern with it. It's not going to affect the city financially anyway. I think it will affect the city in helping to fix up the apartment complex. If everything I read here is true and comes to fruition, it sounds like they're going to kind of go through and spruce the place up for a better term. So anytime we can do something like that in our community with funds that don't come out of our pockets is a wonderful thing. Would you like to get up and speak on it? Give a little background, or maybe somebody would have a question for you?
Absolutely. James Hamill, Managing Director with the CSBA. Yeah, this is a great project. As mentioned in the report, we financed this in 2005. They're going to come and extend the affordability another 55 years, and then, as you point out, Mayor, spruce up the place and make additions to the units and the outside of the facility also. So I'm happy to answer any questions that council members may have.
This basically is just a continuance of what's been going on over there for many years in the past, right?
Absolutely. So what happens is after 15 years, the tax credits expire, so they have to come back every 15 years. So we'll probably be back here again in 15 years from now, and that's, it's just a re-up of the application.
You guys have any questions?
The only thing I'd like to add is as being a fireman in this town, and Jeremiah could probably agree with me on this one, is your buildings, maybe put big numbering on them so we know what apartments are in what buildings, and make it easier to locate something in an emergency type situation. The buildings in the past have had a number on them, but maybe put it bigger and put what apartments are in that particular building would make it nicer. Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions or comments? All right, well, thank you. If there's nothing further, I will close the public hearing at this time. Is there anything further from any council members? Christina, do you have anything to add to this project?
Staff has no concerns about this one.
Do I have a motion or recommendation?
Do we need one?
Yep, there's a recommendation.
Yeah. Honorable Mayor, having conducted the Tax Equity and Financial Responsibility Act hearing, adopt Resolution 11-09-2021-01, approving the issuance of bond by the state of by the California Statewide Communities Development Authority in an amount not to exceed $7 million for the benefit of Highland Property Development LLC for financing the acquisition and rehabilitation of Valley Terrace Apartments.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This will pass unanimous. Right, thank you. And we are going to move on to, at this time, we're going to the regular agenda. We are moving item J11. We're going to start with J11, and then we will proceed to J10. So we'll be going out of order here. Adopt Resolution 1109-2021-02. Resolution adopting a recovered organic waste product procurement policy.
I'm going to turn it over to Rachel Ross, Agency Manager for the Tehama County Solid Waste Management Agency.
Thank you. So good evening. I'm here today to present two items to you. The first is the adoption of a recovered organic waste product procurement policy. A little bit of background information. In 2016, Governor Brown signed SB 1383 into law, and it established methane emissions reductions targets in a statewide effort to reduce emissions of short-lived climate pollutants. As it relates to solid waste, SB 1383 established targets to achieve a 50% reduction in the level of statewide disposal of organic waste from the 2014 level by 2020 and 75% by 2025. The law provides CalRecycle with very far-reaching authority to achieve these goals and places requirements on multiple entities, including jurisdictions, residential households, commercial businesses, multifamily dwellings, edible food generators, commercial haulers, self-haulers, food recovery organizations, and food recovery services in order to support the achievement of the goals. So what we're here for today is beginning on January 1st, 2027. Jurisdictions with a rural exemption, which the agency applied for, annually must procure for the use or give away a quantity of recovered organic waste products that meets or exceeds its annual target based on its population. So what that means for Corning, of a population of about 8,200 people, you'll have to procure 380.5 tons of compost or 656 tons of mulch. Additionally, beginning January 1st, 2022, if the fitness, quality, and costs are equal, you have to require all the departments and your vendors to purchase recycled content paper products that consist of at least 30% post-consumer fiber and can be recycled. So I'm recommending adoption of this policy today so that the city can remain in compliance with the regulations.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that the state's forcing on us, so it ain't gonna matter, but does it seem like this is something that is reachable right out of the gate like they're expecting? I don't know that much about the waste industry,
Well, this.
but I do have some concerns moving forward that as a city entity, are we gonna be able to comply with the state regulations?
So this specific resolution is just for the procurement.
Okay.
Um,
So that question
only
would be for the
able
next
to
one?
buy that amount of compost or mulch. That's a budgeting issue.
Okay.
We'll have to spend that money as a city and then figure out where we want to put it.
Hmm.
Fortunately, we have some parks that could use it. For the first few years, that won't be so difficult. But over time, my suggestion, at least for the compost portion, is we do have some fields that really do not have good soil quality, and adding compost to them may make those soccer fields better suited for soccer play. So we do have some uses for these types of products. Perhaps not to the extent that we're being required to purchase, but we will figure out a way to use it.
Gotcha.
I think it's worth noting too is that you can also give it away to your residents. So you don't have to use it, you can procure it and give it back to the community.
Okay.
I just think it's an undue burden we're imposing on the citizens of Corning and the city of Corning. I mean, I'm so against it, but it's something we have to do. I understand that. But I'm not in favor of it at all. I'll let somebody else make their recommendation.
That being said, if there's no more comments, do I have a motion?
Make a motion that mayor and council adopt resolution number 11-09-2021-02, a resolution adopting a recovered organic waste product procurement policy.
I begrudgingly second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
It does not have anything to do with how much we like it, because we think they're the law.
It reluctantly passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Now we will go back to item number 10, ordinance number 696, an ordinance adopting chapter 8.21 of the Corning Municipal Code pertaining to mandatory organic waste disposal reduction. First reading and introduction.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Again, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel Ross.
So this is pertaining to the same regulations. Another requirement of the state is that the city must pass an ordinance that grants authority to the jurisdiction or its delegated entity to enforce regulations. So this is such an ordinance. I will state that we didn't include anything in here that wasn't required. So additional expansion on the regulations that was proposed by the state is not included in here, so we're not going beyond what's required of the city. And I'll just briefly go through each section of the ordinance. So the first section is the requirements for single-family generators, and that means that you will be required to require single-family generators to comply to the city's 4-container collection system. That's 1 container for trash, 1 for yard waste, 1 for recycling, and 1 for food waste. And you'll require them to segregate their waste appropriately into those 4 different containers. The second is to place the same requirements on commercial businesses. That includes multifamily dwellings of 5 units or more. And additionally, for commercial businesses, there is an education and enforcement aspect that We will make sure that are educating their staff and their customers on how to use the appropriate bins inside the business, and they also have to have everywhere there's a trash can, they have to have a recycling can, a food waste can as well. So you have to make sure that those are available for everybody to use. There are certain provisions in the regulations to grant only commercial generators certain waivers. That doesn't apply to residential generators. There's 3 different waivers. There's a de minimis waiver, meaning that if you produce under a certain volume of organic waste per week, that you could, it's a pretty high bar to achieve, but you could apply for a waiver to not have to subscribe to food waste collection. The second one is a space waiver. So if you are a commercial entity and you don't have adequate space to house that 4th bin, you could get certification from an architect or an engineer, and you could have that requirement waived for yourself. The third is a collection frequency waiver, meaning that if you're so good at segregating your waste into the 4 bins, you could apply to have a waiver to not have to pick up either your garbage or your single stream recycling every week. It could be picked up every other week if you're not putting any putrescible waste into those bins. There's requirements for commercial edible food generators, that is grocery stores, distribution centers, wholesale food vendors, and schools, any large venues, large restaurants, that they have to, any edible food that they have left over, they have to donate it to a food recovery organization. They have to have an agreement in place to take that food, and they can't throw it away. Similarly, there's requirements for food recovery organizations to keep records of the food that they're accepting from the commercial edible food generators. There's requirements for haulers and facility operators. They have to comply with the bin coloring requirements and the bin labeling requirements, and they can only take the waste to whatever facility that is so determined by the jurisdiction. There's requirements for self-haulers, so if you're hauling your waste to the landfill, you have to segregate your waste into organic waste and landfillable waste. We can't accept it commingled, we'll make you have to sort it out yourself. We're already complying with Cal Green, but now there's the regulations. The state is able to enforce the requirement of Cal Green diversion requirements. Before, you just had to prove that you're requiring. Now, if you're contractors or you are not enforcing that compliance, then the state can take enforcement action against you. The same goes for water efficient landscaping ordinance requirements, which I will admit to you, I am not an expert on, but it is required to be in this ordinance, so that language is in there. The procurement requirements, which references back to the policy you just adopted. So there is a section in here that requires all departments and vendors to comply with that procurement policy. Inspections, investigations by the jurisdiction. It grants authority to the regional agency, which is the Tehama County Solid Waste Management Agency, or the jurisdiction to go in and inspect generators to make sure they're compliant. It's worth noting that for residential generators, we'll only inspect the cans once they're out for collection. We won't go on to someone's private property beyond what's expected or beyond what is achieved by just simply normal collection. There is enforcement as well. The agency, the Tehama County Solid Waste Management Agency, will collect all the data and identify violations. And I should let you know that we won't be the one issuing notice of violations or financial penalties. We'll refer that back to the city to take care of. And the effective date is January 1st, 2022, except for curbside collection. The agency did apply for a rural exemption, which will delay the implementation of curbside collection until January 1st, 2027.
So 6 more years, I could do 3 more terms. Okay. Oh,
Can we go? Can we talk?
This
Is
is
that-
where we have
yeah.
people who are having trouble making their payments for their bins and how much that's going to go up.
Rachel, when I was on the board up there, with the Earth Committee, we hadn't even figured out a place to haul the stuff. Has that been addressed? Have you procured a place to haul it, or is there still if I remember correctly, I think they were talking Marysville, Yuba City, or whatever was the nearest facility.
Right, so since then, the last fiscal year, we completed a feasibility study to site a composting facility at the Tanganyika County Red Bluff
I know we
landfill.
talked about that.
And I did get direction from my board to move forward with getting a proposal to complete CEQA and necessary permitting. So that should go before the agency board in January. Other than that, there is one other facility that may potentially come online at the Anderson landfill. They're already discussing taking limited commercial food waste because of contamination issues, so it won't fully meet the city's needs. So we are looking at those two different facilities here locally.
And do you have any idea, as far as like Greenways or the companies, how many more trucks are gonna have to purchase to handle all this? Are they gonna have to buy new trucks? Are they just gonna redesignate some trucks, or what's?
So how many trucks there is depends on the technology of the facility that you're hauling to. If we site a composting facility at the Tanganyika County Red Bluff landfill or the Anderson landfill, food waste and yard waste will need to be collected separately. It can't be commingled. So that means that it will be an additional truck for every route. Assuming that you have co-collection trucks.
This is just, I know we're being recorded, so I can't say what I really would like to say. So,
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Since this is being mandated by the state to do, are they going to kick out any funds to the cities or jurisdictions to help facilitate this the added work?
There has been discussion just recently within, I think it's on CalRecycle's November public meeting, to do a sort of city-county payment program. It's not a long-term payment for the program, but help with implementation costs. That's basically as far as they've gotten. They haven't made any indication what that program will look like. This is just a study session to come up with the guidelines for that program. And it won't be a renewing program.
I would love you to.
The increased cost that it's going to be to the company for this, for the city's company, I mean, that's going to be kicked down, obviously, to the customers. Do they have any idea? I didn't read the whole thing. Any idea what the increase is going to be per customer? They haven't
I don't think
figured
there's
that out
any way
yet.
to determine that because there's a certain portion of the cost for your collection is based on the landfill tipping fees. And since we don't know the overall impact of landfill tipping fees yet to develop these facilities, or even if we will move forward with facility to landfill, we can't tell the franchise haulers what that fee will be. So
Okay.
there is no way to determine.
Yeah.
The county don't have 2 extra bins at our house. They don't have
There's-
already.
Right, there is more infrastructure required of the hauler though. So you will have an extra bin and probably another truck, so that will be cost, but we don't need to discuss that.
Sometimes it can be really bad in pouring with all the food. I mean,
Well, you already have your.
I know,
your
you don't
trash.
have it in there, it's gonna be separate, but I just can see me going through garbage all the time to make sure that,
The reality is,
oh, Jeremiah knocking on the door.
folks will have to separate it underneath their sinks. So people that already compost their food waste typically have some sort of jar or receptacle that they keep with a lid on it, and then they take that out and dump it. I know you're shaking your head.
I don't have room under my sink for a jar.
garbage disposal for.
Well,
No, it's what you have a chicken jar for.
Yeah, that's
So-
what it was.
So anyway.
The reality is the city will be forced to fine these folks that aren't complying, which is not something I'm excited about.
Another reason for people to hate us.
And who's gonna impose those fines and collect is it gonna be through
PD.
the city?
Yeah,
Or
we
is
will
Jeremiah
have to
gonna be
have-
hanging tickets on people's doors?
We will have to have an employee, and at least initially, there's been some discussion about whether the cities and the county can jointly employ either a consultant or a joint employee that we would all share that would be responsible
Wow,
for this
heck, yeah.
work, because the work would be similar amongst all. I can say for certain that with my existing staff loads with existing employees, we don't have capacity to add this unless everybody is complying 100%. Which we know that's not gonna happen.
Just hire the homeless, they already tear through all the garbage bags.
So while I think a long-term perspective, you know, whether we like this or not, perhaps doesn't matter because it's required by law. But if you think back to 1989, when Assembly Bill 939 was passed, which required cities and counties to divert 50% of the waste stream, I can almost guarantee that there was this same level of apprehension of, oh my God, people aren't going to do it. People are not going to recycle. How are we going to do this? And honestly, my biggest worry is the additional costs and people buying.
That's my concern is, ain't none of this gonna come cheap. So, Waste Management is gonna pass on every dollar, every dime they spend to our citizens that already don't like the charges they get hit. But once again, this great state of California is imposing what they feel is best on everybody else, and we just have to sit back and take it, so. We can beat it up all night, but it's something that's gonna have to be done whether we like it or not. With that, do I have a motion for Jeremiah to be the collector?
I make a motion that mayor and council move to waive the reading and introduce ordinance 696, an ordinance of the city of Corning adopting chapter 8.21 of the Corning Municipal Code pertaining to mandatory organic waste disposal reduction within the city of Corning. Approve summary ordinance 696 for publication purposes and direct the city clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
I will second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No. In protest.
Yeah, it's, I'm also a no, but it's gonna go regardless, so
Yep.
it's a 3-2 vote. So do you need to read the ordinance at this time, Lisa?
Ordinance number 696, an ordinance adopting Chapter 8.21 of the Corning Municipal Code pertaining to mandatory organic waste disposal reduction. This is the first reading and introduction.
All right, well, thank you very much for the wonderful news. We're not stoning the messenger. All right, we will move on to item number 12, accept notice of completion and authorized release of retention funds in the amount of $16,423.45 to Aircon Energy Incorporated for energy-related improvements to various city facilities.
I'm
And
going to take this. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Robin is on vacation. She's actually taking her daughter to different colleges and universities today. So within that, the title pretty much explains it all. We've been working with Aircon for a few years now on energy efficiency improvements, and we are satisfied with the improvements. While there have been significant issues, the one thing that I can say is Aircon's been committed to working with the city on those issues, and we do feel comfortable with filing the project at this time. With the, I don't have to, I'm trying to scroll as fast as I can right now, but we did have some payments that went to Grace Heating and Air that they have agreed to reduce from their final payment.
was that for work here or over at the fire hall?
That was for work here, I believe it was at PD.
Anybody got any questions, comments, concerns? Not to have a motion.
I move Mayor and Council accept and direct the city manager to sign the notice of completion and authorize city clerk to file notice with the Tama County for recording and authorize release of retention funds to Aircon Energy Incorporated in the amount of $16,423.45 from the same budget line.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So passed unanimous. All right, move on to item J13. Does somebody have to recuse themselves from this? Oh, okay.
Oh, I didn't bring the keys.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't bring the keys. But if she's in there, she can
I'll
open
open
it.
the door when we're ready for you. It's unlocked. Because I don't.
Lock her in. All right. Authorize an additional donation to the senior center in the amount of $6,000 to support their operations during the COVID-19 pandemic. And that would be Christina.
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Typically, the city budgets $4,000 to support the senior center, of which $2,700 of that is a donation for their operations, and the remaining is for the city's cost for any outside building maintenance. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the senior center has not been able to fundraise at normal levels. They haven't been able to have bunco. Typically, they would have kind of like a coffee breakfast and where they would receive donations. They haven't been able to hold any of their fundraising activities, and so they're really suffering as an organization. I feel strongly that the senior center provides a vital public service to our seniors. For some of them, they rely on the food from the senior center really to survive. So within that, staff recommend an additional contribution to the senior center in the amount of $6,000 for fiscal year 21-22. And staff will reassess the need for an additional contribution as part of next year's budget process. I am looking at whether this would qualify for usage of our American Recovery Plan Act funds, but I can't make a for certain statement at this point. So tonight, I'm recommending that if the council should approve this allocation, that it comes from general fund reserves to fund account 001-6313-1600.
Well, I think you answered the only concern I had with reading through this, just so everybody understood that this is a one-time adjustment this year to help them get through, and that we could reassess it. It's not a modification to the yearly monies that go to the senior center.
I don't know how they act as long as they have.
Yeah.
That's a huge cut,
Nope.
not being able to.
I'm sure there's probably a lady sitting right over there that's helped them out time to
Yes.
time.
Well, taking care of our seniors is the least we can do, and
Yes, it is.
giving them a little more money to help them get by and continue their operations that's a no-brainer in my book, so.
Well, on
Dave
that
likes
note,
to get sandwiches too,
I
so.
gotta go get my free lunch. On that note, I'm gonna move mayor and council approve the budget modification in the amount of $6,000 from general fund reserves to the fund account 001-6313-1600 to support the senior center as an operation that provides a public benefit and authorized payment in the amount of $6,000 to the senior center.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's so passed unanimous. Let Karen back in, Chewy. Karen's back, we can announce the vote so she's aware.
It was approved.
All right, item number 14, authorize removal of approximately 15 trees from Woodson Park. That would be Jeremiah?
I think that's planning on taking it.
Come on, Jeremiah.
I think we can add any safety questions, but thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. On behalf of Robin Campman, the Public Works Consultant, I'm requesting the council authorize the removal of 15 trees from Woodson Park. 9 trees are proposed to be removed to accommodate security measures in order to allow for security cameras to have visibility within the park. And then the other 6 trees are dead and dying and need to be removed. The city has been experiencing quite a bit of vandalism. We've been shutting down the bathrooms. Staff is spending a considerable amount of time trying to maintain the bathrooms at the park and keep them open. And after discussion amongst staff, we feel without security cameras on site, this is going to continue. And in order for the security cameras to have the visibility they need to, the removal of 9 trees is necessary. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
It makes me sad, we have to take so many trees out because I love that park. But I understand why we need to do it. Just makes me sad.
The removal of the trees really isn't going to help the bathroom situation, though, really. Visibility, will it?
Well, hopefully, with the cameras and additional presence with the cameras, that activity will decrease. I'm not going to say it's going to go away, because we have those problems at every park. But the problem at Woodson is worse than in other parks.
I think what it boils down to is Jeremiah's hands being handcuffed of being able to punish people for doing what they're doing. I mean, that's what it all boils down to. If they could be held accountable, we wouldn't have these problems. But unfortunately, they can't be, because it doesn't matter how many times Jeremiah guys arrest them or whatever, they just kind of laugh at you and say, yeah, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I agree 100% with you folks about removal of the trees. It's the last thing I want to do, but being able to open up the park a little bit, being able to see.
Yeah, it will help.
And the cameras will be.
Not
just
deterrent.
deterrent for me to able to do more things.
Yeah, the disease and dying trees, they need to be removed regardless. The few extra trees that were taken out to allow more review with the cameras, I personally do not have a problem with. I know that park, you know, the initial intention, that used to be a place where people camped in this community going way back when, so it has a lot of sentimental value to a lot of residents. But times have changed. We do need to open the park up to make it more visible for our officers and for any other citizen that would like to use the park at any time of the day, where people can't be hiding in the shadows as much. I know, you know, my daughter used to live over there, just adjacent from the park, and she used to make her nervous walking by there at night with the kids. I always tell her, don't worry about it, they won't bother you. You know, they'll go hide from you. But the reality of it is, if you can't see them, it makes you scared. I think it deters from a lot of citizens that would like to utilize the park. So I am very much in favor of removing a few trees, putting some cameras up. I'd like to see cameras at all of our parks eventually, so our patrol officers don't have to be trying to scurry around the town to look at them, when our dispatcher could be glancing at a monitor once in a while going, hey, need you to go over there, there's something going on. It's just another tool that, you know, like I said, agree with Dave, their hands are already tied, but any tool we can give them to help, I'm all in favor, so I think it's a good thing.
I think it'll also help keep the park clean a little bit too. It'll lessen the load on our parks guy.
We haven't been able to harvest the olive trees, or the olives from the olive trees, because the market for olives isn't there.
We're not, you know, we're not strip logging the park. We're going to just remove a few trees that need to be for visibility, and the ones that need to be removed because they're dying, so. Any more comment? If not, do I have a motion?
I make a motion motion the mayor and council authorize the removal of 15 trees from Woodland Park.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So passed unanimous. Item number 15, approve required Dixie Fire Memorandum, MOU agreement between the city of Corning and the county of Tehama seeking reimbursement of costs incurred by the city. Christine?
That's me again. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. The city, and I'm very grateful to the Corning PD for their willingness to help out during the Dixie Fire. But now, in order to be reimbursed for those costs, we need to have an MOU with the county to allow for such. And that is what I'm asking for you to approve tonight.
I think it's a no-brainer.
You don't think that needs a lot of discussion unless anybody has a question for Christine about it?
No, I'd just like to thank Jeremiah's officers for assisting in everything they do in an emergency situation like that. Not only for the Dixie Fire, but when we have a fire at Red Bluff or fire at Reading, they're always there to help, and it's deeply appreciated. They save uncounted lives by helping evacuate people or controlling traffic or whatever they might be.
Yep. Nope, I agree. Our guys next door are always more willing to go help wherever it needs to be in the county, out of county. We don't have those situations happen here, but you know damn well that they appreciate when they see out of town resources. You know, the guys that have gone out on the fire trucks, on fires, they see it. But for your department to do that, you know, that's something that don't happen all the time, and it's very much appreciated. There's nothing else. Do I have a motion?
I move Mayor and Council approve the required Dixie Fire MOU agreement between the City of Corning and the County of Tehama to seek reimbursement of Dixie Fire costs incurred by the city and authorize the city manager to sign the MOU on behalf of the City of Corning.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So passed unanimous. All right, items placed on the floor, there are none. Communications, correspondence, information?
I would just remind that Friday is a city holiday. I know most folks celebrate veterans
We shredded that, you were working.
on Thursday, but there will not be staff here on Friday, except for emergency services.
Myself.
Of course.
All right, reports from council members. Shelley?
I have nothing.
David?
I attended no meetings, but I'd like to encourage everybody to come downtown Thursday for the Veterans Day Parade at 11 o'clock, right, Jerry? Yes. Go with me on it, 11 o'clock. And also, starting tomorrow night, the Corning Volunteer Fire Department will be going door to door selling our annual Fireman's Raffle tickets to support our Christmas program.
So if your dispatchers get calls, there's people walking around, that's just us. Maybe.
They say weird people, that's Robert.
Karen?
We had a solid waste management landfill meeting here in the Corning Chambers last Thursday. And we talked about what we talked about today.
Paul? Chewy?
I have nothing.
And I have nothing. A meeting? No, okay, go ahead.
The Corning Sub-Basin Advisory Board will be meeting actually in the Corning City Council chambers tomorrow at 1 o'clock to make a recommendation to approve the Corning Sub-Basin Groundwater Sustainability Plan. That's just a recommendation. It needs to go to the, I might not be getting it right, but the Glenn County GSA and the Tehama County Groundwater Sustainability Committee for approval before it's final. But it provides an opportunity for comment tomorrow.
And that's at 1 o'clock?
Yes, 1 to 4.
Jerry?
Just a reminder that the flagpole is on its way. I thought it'd be here by now, but it's not. Truckers, we got to lay truckers for everything.
It's sitting on a boat out in the, oh, never mind.
So hopefully we'll be proceeding, getting that thing up here pretty quick.
Awesome.
It's at 1:30.
1:30.
Mine has something now.
Jeremiah, the floor is yours, sir.
So, we've received 6 calls already about the water blow-off pump on 99. The Public Works working on that, so for everybody's benefit, it's not an emergency. We're going to be doing this for quite some time. There's going to be a lot of water out there. Please pass it along to your friends and family. So
Thank God it's raining.
Yeah.
It's water testing. It's required by the state.
Oh, I wondered why the water was running out. Oh, I didn't call, though. I got ready to check all the names.
Anything else? Meeting adjourned. Oh, meatloaf.
absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Here, we'll be in touch with you, Kim.
Yes.